Hello, friends. How we doing? Welcome back. Number 4. Let's do this thing. Wanted to get another one out. This is my second one, and this weekend I did one yesterday, number 3, on Saturday, and so wanted to get this next one out. Just being in kind of the podcasting mood. I actually realized how I need to actually, get better at just talking in general and, in telling stories and stuff like that, getting the right words down, getting the right message through. It's definitely a skill set that I've, I've never been the greatest at, I guess, communicating, either like presenting in terms of like presenting stuff. I like telling stories a lot. I've always enjoyed just storytelling and kind of the art form of it. But podcasting is for sure some sort of skill that requires a lot of time and patience, and I think just repetitiveness, routine, like anything else to get better at it. I've realized just kind of reviewing stuff, and I definitely don't like watching myself, but it's kind of fucking weird, but I definitely want to get better at just talking in general without none of the mumbo jumbo. But on another note, in this one, really just wanted to get into more of childhood stuff in terms of my upbringing, just growing up in general. A lot of stuff I wanted to really kind of reflect on elementary school, more or less, in this one. Just those elementary years. Connecting back to the last episode, I mentioned I wanted to kind of do this timeline of things in terms of just, telling the story of, my memories, are more or less what I can remember about early childhood. A lot of childhood memories obviously are kind of, they circle around school and stuff like that. I don't remember much before elementary school, just being like a toddler, obviously. It's a very long time ago. But the reason why I wanted to get this done in the podcast kind of right away is just to give like a background of myself personally, and the experiences I had growing up, good and bad, and just everything in between. I feel like getting a background of myself up there in the first couple ones is good, just to give a set the set the scene for where I'm at present day, before I guess I run out of stuff to. I guess you can never really run out of stuff to, stories to bring up, because life is just kind of like a movie like that. There's always just new things happening, at least I have a lot of new thoughts on everything, like day to day. It's always just an evolution of memories and experiences and stuff like that. But I guess I wanted to run down kind of give it some sort of structure, just this my upbringing in terms of like laying it out in a podcast form. So I think in this one, what I really wanted to hit was elementary years experiences, and it's easy. I also understand this was kind of another reason or another aspect to this. In my reasoning for doing this way, and wanting to do it this way, is because I can actually, recall these moments from early elementary years. I definitely still remember things that happened. Obviously, not everything, but stuff sticks out to me, that I still recall and still look back fondly on, uh, just personally and stuff like that. And so, I'm taking advantage of the fact that I can actually remember these things now and not possibly forget them in, uh, I'll obviously possibly forget them in the future as I get older. So I figure may as well tell them now as I can remember them. Because when you think about it, I guess, elementary years, you're like 5 or 6, I think, when you start kindergarten. So that's basically 20 years ago from where I'm at now, from where I started. I'm pretty sure you start at like 5 or 6. 6 sounds about right. So still quite a while ago for me now. Currently 20, I'm 24 now, so about 20 years. But still can remember a lot of good memories, a lot of cool things that I kind of look back on here and there. So that's how we're gonna do this. One thing that first popped into my head when I was kind of, going over this stuff was bus rides to and from school. Just something as simple as getting picked up by the bus, and kind of how I remember those instances in life in school, because it's something you do every single day, right? Get on a bus, go to school, unless you like walk to school or whatnot. I don't know. For a lot of kids, I think they ride the bus. But I rode it basically every day, starting in elementary school at some point. But it's just crazy when at least I think about it. I just remember all the crazy shit that happened on like bus rides and stuff, because it's really the first experience you have at the beginning of the day and the last experience you have at the end of the day in school. And when you're a very young kid, I think those moments really make an impression. Even though if it's like a pretty quick, it was a pretty quick ride for me. Never lasted very long, but just the fact that it repetitively happened every single day, twice a day. For some reason, it just always sticks out. Those short, very short and brief bus rides, they stick out for some reason. And yeah, so there was always something going on, or not. But a lot of the times there's either 4th or 5th graders picking on the little kids, or somebody has the window down and they're sticking their head out the side of the bus while the bus driver is going down the back road highway at like 50 miles an hour. Bus drivers yelling back at kids, all the classic original stuff. But it's just funny to think back on the day-to-day bus rides and how it actually made an impression on myself year after year. But it was cool. I do remember moments too. I thought this was kind of interesting. There were moments when, or specific days when, my bus driver, one of the many bus drivers I had, one of them would always bring in like packs of soda, like 12 packs of like sodas, like Mountain Dew or root beer or whatever, on like Fridays, something like that. Yeah, I think it was Fridays. Yeah, but it was funny because the fact that he was bringing in those sodas or started bringing in them at some point, it just became something that I remember always looking forward to. Like, I would always check the front seat or something like that when I would hop on the bus. Be like, oh, did he bring sodas today? No, I don't think it was just Fridays. I think it was kind of randomly. I was trying to remember there, but I think he brought them in like randomly. But it just sticks out in my mind because I always was in anticipation of maybe getting a can of soda that I could sip on my walk back up to my house. um, yeah, but always some crazy stuff going down on the bus. And I feel like those interactions, those social interactions, this might be another hint at why these moments on the bus rides stuck out to me, was because I think those social interactions, kid to kid, first thing in the morning and last thing at the end of the day, those social interactions that you have just with like the kids on your route are, I think, pretty influential. Whether it be good or bad, whether it be like a good or a bad interaction, or anything in between. But the fact that it's just like the bus driver is like the only guardian over 20 or 30 some odd kids on a bus, which is actually crazy when you think about it. You got to give your respect to the bus drivers, man. They really put in work out here, handling all those kids' lives. Respect to the bus drivers out there, because they don't get enough respect, man. But when you think about it, yeah, they're literally looking over a bunch of little kids on a pretty difficult vehicle to drive, I can imagine. I don't think driving a bus would be the easiest thing. It's pretty long. But yeah, I think those social interactions, kid to kid, that you have on the bus make an impact over a long period of time. At least they always stuck out to me like that. So yeah, a bunch of bus rides. There was one thing I also wanted to throw in there. My walk home, up to my house, getting, up and down to the bus, was long as hell, really long. The road that I had to walk down in the morning, it was basically a pretty long hill. I'd say quarter-mile stretch, maybe like 600 meters, a little more than a quarter mile. I don't know, something like that. But it always felt really long as a kid. It took like 15, 20 minutes to walk up or down it. Pretty steep hills too. But man, every day going through fall, winter, spring, and first part of summer, just walking that hill, and it definitely gave me some conditioning, I think, for sports in the future when I would eventually, come to play sports and stuff like that. I think walking the hill to get down to the bus was a big asset in my conditioning strength through sports, probably. But because it was a pretty damn big hill, and I mean, walking it in winter was not fun at all. Having just freezing weather and a ton of snow, having to walk up just a gigantic hill, not fun. But it played a role. I will never forget walking that hill to get up and down to the bus every single day. But it's the routine of it all. There's no way in hell my parents are going to come pick me up or shit like that. I mean, they were at work still. Sometimes I do remember sometimes I would actually ride my bike down to the bus, and there was this culvert. There's this like culvert drainage ditch, like huge little drain thing. I don't even know how to describe it, but you could basically you could walk through it. It was like a big tunnel too. You could like crouch through it pretty much, but big old culvert. And sometimes I would, when I got a little bit older and I knew how to ride a bike and stuff, I would just ride my bike down the hill and then drop it in the culvert and pray to God no one found it in there and took it or anything. I would just leave it in there all day while I was at school, and then when the bus dropped me off, I would go and hop in the culvert, pick my bike out, ride it up the hill. But yeah, never got jacked or stolen or anything, so that was good. But yeah, elementary years though, moving on from buses and bus rides, I think that those definitely stick out for some odd reason. But respect to the bus drivers, seriously. But elementary years were honestly, I just remember a whole lot of fun. Elementary school, I think, is really weird when you kind of break it down because the kids are so young. To me, the best way I can describe it in my memory of experiences is just a whirlwind, like blur of basic learning and just running around and having fun with other kids. Like it's just all like a blur, like a really fast like blur. Which is also interesting because I think the other side of that is when you're in it, like I recall when just the feeling of elementary school it felt like it would last forever. It felt like this was just life and this is what life would always be. It didn't feel like 5 years, kindergarten through 5th grade. It didn't, because, I think when you're that young, you don't really have a concept or a grasp of that type of time progression over that long period. So when you're in it, I recall it feeling like this is just life. This is how it's always going to be. I just go to this school and I play with all my friends and I go on the playground and I get lunch and this is it. And it's great. So when you're in it, yeah, it feels like forever. But looking back on it now, it's like just a whirlwind, just a blur. A really quick spurt of I don't know what energy. But yeah, I just remember having a lot of fun. Some of the best. So basically, my elementary school, Southern Bluffs. Good old Southern Bluffs. Still remember a lot of my teachers that obviously most of them don't teach there anymore. Or if not all of them. But I remember my teachers just being awesome. A lot of them felt like I don't think I had one male elementary school teacher. I think they were all women, like middle-aged women they were obviously they were all basically like moms and grandmas. But yeah, my teachers were so great that I remember there was one time, 3rd grade, where I accidentally called my teacher my mom. I was like, "Hey, Mom," and then it was an awkward "Oh, what did I just say?" I think that's like a common thing to happen where as a very young kid like that in elementary school, you spend so much time with your teacher. Or teachers, and you just build that sort of bond with them that they're more like your family, and not necessarily a teacher. I actually just remembered too. I had the same 2nd and 3rd grade teacher. She and that class, it was I'm pretty sure it was the same exact class. Uh, as I remember it, she liked our class so much, and our class got along so well that, and it just kind of worked out that she was like, "I'm just gonna teach third grade next year with all of these guys again." Um, I'm sure there was like a few different kids, but our second, I definitely remember my second grade class and my third grade class. We bonded so heavily, and we got along. We all got along so well, like a family, that we all basically, most of us, if not all of us, stayed together through third grade, and we had the same teacher, which was just, I thought at the time I was, and I still think that was just like one of the coolest experiences. Um, because it's like, you get another year with your closest friends, basically your family, your second family, because that's what elementary school kind of is. It's you know it's not too many kids. At least there wasn't too many kids at my school. My school is basically kind of mid-size, I'd say, but it's truly your second family, when you break it down. But yeah, that was super neat that it kind of worked out that she just ended up teaching that class again, and we all kind of hung together for 2 straight years. So that was cool. But yeah, some of the most fun days that I had in elementary school were, we would have these days, not often, very rare. I think it was only once or twice a year. Um, and it was a day where basically there was no class. And I forget all of how it went, but pretty much all the teachers and faculty set up like little activities and like fun games all throughout the school, and like all throughout the playground too. And there at my school we had a huge playground. It was basically it used to be a farm field, and there was a farm field, or a cornfield. There's a farm like adjacent to the school itself. So it all used to be, there's farmland, surrounding the school, and it presumably used to be a just like a cornfield. So the playground, that said, the playground was gigantic. So because there was just so much, undeveloped land out there that the school kind of just took over. But those days, they would just set up a bunch of activities, a bunch of like fun things to do outside, just complete kid stuff, all throughout the school too. And I can't remember if like we teamed up as like classes versus classes or something like that, but it was basically just an entire day of fun. And I remember those. I remember those being every kid in the school looked forward to those days, throughout the entire year, because I think it was like at the end of the year too, in your summertime. It was awesome though. It was awesome. Yeah, we did a lot of fun stuff in my elementary school. I think a lot of engaging. There's a lot of engagement. But yeah, I remember, I remember just little things here and there, music class, art class, getting lunch. There's always those like family visits too. So like sometimes uh, kids would bring in their parents to eat lunch with them, and they'd hang out for a little bit. My parents did that a little bit. So those were always fun, having those days. But elementary school, I think, is just weird, man. going back, like I said before, it just feels like this is life and this is how it's always going to be. It's just because, and I think the other thing too is like obviously you're learning like very basic things, like how to tell time, how to count money, how, at least I remember how learning how to write in cursive, writing your signature, a little bit of like geography stuff, the spelling bee. So really like basic stuff, and it's all just, I think at a certain point it all just becomes like a fun just pattern of life, and it's really cool. I had a blast in elementary school, at least until uh, until I started becoming pretty much a troubled kid, and that was the other part um, of this little segment here too, is because I actually did, regardless of all that stuff, you know, personally, come like fourth grade, I started to become a pretty much a little jackass, pretty much a bully. I definitely remember that too. It was no bueno. It was not good. Um, yeah, there was. I don't know what it was, what triggered it. I can maybe like connect some things, but end of the day, bottom line, come like fourth grade, I started just like lashing out. Not really respecting, uh, not really respecting other kids. If I just got mad, I would just get mad and like, uh, get in fights with kids. Which is strange because now today, it didn't last long. It was just like those couple years where it got pretty bad, like pretty bad. But after, once I hit middle school, it was just clean slate. There was a talking. There was definitely like some conferences that I attended with teachers and principals about my behavior and stuff. But it is strange looking back on those troubled years as a elementary school kid too, because it didn't, like I said, it didn't last long, and I've never had many issues. Obviously, there's things happen here and there where you just get angry and maybe like get in a little fight here and there. That's just like life, growing up. But I never had. I just recall fourth and fifth grade being really bad, and after that, there was no. There was no instances of me lashing out at other kids or anything throughout like middle school, high school. But it is interesting because those moments are just as clear. Those kind of bad moments are just as clear as the really good ones. I think the bad ones maybe even a little bit more because it those years that I started getting more aggressive in my behavior in elementary school, fourth and fifth grade, it definitely made a pretty critical impression on my younger self, and that carried over throughout the rest of my academic career, really, and my schooling. It just kind of molded. I think it was definitely a molding period for myself as a kid with how I would deal with, getting angry or, getting upset and stuff like that. And it is interesting as well because as as going forward, I would eventually end up I would eventually end up getting bullied pretty hard. I think, you know, nothing like crazy, but there were obviously every kid has their moments. But I do remember there were some bad ones too in there happening to me later on. So it's kind of ironic, the cycles of things. That was kind of the point of that, what I was trying to get through, is just how things cycle like that. As a very young kid, elementary school, at least the end of it, it was not good, like I was saying. And then it would eventually come back around to kick me in the ass later on. But yeah, fourth grade, there was quite a few suspensions in fourth grade. I can definitely remember just like where I would have to, go and sit in the little detention room for like the day or something like that, for like just lashing out at a kid or something like that. But yeah, it got bad here and there. It got bad. It's nothing to laugh about really, because yeah, when I look back on it too, it could have honestly gone. It could have kept going. There's nothing to say, or there's nothing to there's nothing stopping that type of behavior from really progressing from really young childhood into becoming a teenager and then an adult. So I gotta really I gotta give a shout out to my parents and the teachers and frankly the other kids too that would eventually come to step in and be like, yo dude, you gotta chill. Because who knows, I mean, yeah, there's nothing to say that would have kept on going if there wouldn't have been an intervention and stuff like that. There was a moment I can remember. Fourth grade, it had to have been. Fourth grade was definitely the worst. Fifth grade, I started to settle down a bit. There were some instances that I remember I got held back in fifth grade from like a school field trip, which was not. God, I still think back on that, man. It was such a cool field trip too. But yeah, I can go into that a little bit. But fourth grade, yeah, there was a moment in fourth grade where I was really riding the line, and probably at like the lowest point where I actually got called in to the office, had to sit down and talk with head honcho about what was going on and stuff like that, because it was becoming to get like a pretty bad problem. Can't have kids bullying kids that young, stuff like that. But I remember the discussion very clearly in my head, that discussion with head honcho, the principal. Because, basically, she put it to me straight. She was just like, cut and dry, basically was saying, Paul, if you continue like this in middle school, they're going to start to, possibly get the police involved. And it's like, okay, well, when you're saying it like that, yeah, it makes sense too, because, there's usually in middle schools, there's like a school cop and stuff like that. So, when that got brought out, and that discussion was had, I think that is where it really clicked, and I was like, oh, shit. Because at that point it becomes real. And again, this is what elementary school is, or at least it's about, learning those boundaries. So that still remains very clear in my head to this day. Definitely made an impression. it got real at that moment. And that's when I was like, okay, I gotta like control myself and not just like hit kids. And I never beat kids up severely. I don't really remember, but I definitely remember like, getting in fights with kids and stuff on the playground, just, hassling around, doing what kids do. But it did get bad. It did get bad here and there. But yeah, that conversation was something, man. That was something. 5th grade, yeah, though, it was starting to get better. There were some moments. I wanted to kind of reflect on 5th grade too, specifically because I think 5th grade is a very interesting year. 5th grade it's really unlike any other year. Kindergarten and 5th grade, it's just like, I don't know, because 5th grade, it's you start. I forget how old you would be, maybe like 9 or 10, something like that, 9 or 10. I don't know. But 5th grade is strange because, at least for myself, it's obviously you start to hit at some point in that year, you hit the realization that it's over, that it's what you thought life was is coming to an end, and you need to prepare for the next step. And to me, obviously, it's not like excuse me, Jesus. I'm drinking this green tea. It's kind of dry, but good. But 5th grade is it was never like earth-shattering. I don't recall it being earth-shattering, just like the thought of going into middle school. I just remember not knowing how it was going to work. I was confused as to where I was going to go, or like what, how it was going to work, basically. Because, like, bringing it back to the start of this, I considered it to be more or less just how life worked, elementary school. Things just seemed that they would always stay that way. They would stay the same. But 5th grade came around, and there was for sure a feeling of like, okay, this is something new. This is something that you have no idea about, and something you have to learn to adjust to. Thinking back on it now, I can kind of realize the amount of brain adjustment that was taking place with myself as moving from 5th to 6th grade, and the amount I can how do I explain this? I can feel the amount of impact that moment had in my progression through growing up, just in general. Moving from elementary school to middle school, I definitely can, understand the complexity of that adjustment in that, in the very young and fresh mind, if that makes any sense. Like the amount of adjustment that takes place from fifth to 6th grade, moving through, for me at least, obviously this is maybe different for other people, but I moved schools completely. And it was it was also a pretty big adjustment because my elementary school was only about it was very close to my my home. It was only like a 3 or 4 minute drive. My elementary school was just basically driving down the highway and boop, there it is. My new middle school, Longfellow, was 15, 20 minutes. No, it was about 15 minutes into town. Actually, you had to drive into town. Southern Bluffs was on the outskirts of town in the cornfield. Super like south side of town. And then, so yeah, basically, it's a transition of physical space. You're transitioning into completely new physical space with a shit ton of new kids and new teachers, new everything. So I can understand the complexity of, adjustment that my head was, basically doing automatically, passively, if you will. Obviously, I was conscious of the magnitude of that change, transitioning out of being a very young kid and starting to be, growing to a teenager at that point. But that's a different story. So, but looking back now, I definitely understand like the pretty substantial impacts fifth grade had. I think fifth grade is a really interesting year. It's a lot of changes, a lot of new stuff happens in fifth grade. But elementary school was cool, man. It was even though I kind of fell off the rails there for a little bit. Overall, it was great, dude. It was great. I loved it. There was now that I'm on, with this topic too, real quick, this little piece, there were in third grade, there were many moments where we would have, so obviously there was like, we did a bunch of reading. You do like a bunch of reading in elementary school, just getting your reading skills down. And so we had like reading time and reading circles and stuff like that. And I read more as a young kid than I do now, which is honestly kind of sad. I need to read more. But I loved reading. I still love reading, but I was obsessed with reading back then in elementary school. I think I was part of book club too and stuff. But there were, loved reading. I especially loved telling, reading to other people, like reading to other kids, because it's just something like you do in class. So there were a lot of times in third grade, I remember with that one class that was more or less like a family. We had reading times, and I specifically remember this book. It was the book of like scary stories, or scary stories to tell in the dark. If you guys know what those series are, what that series is, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I think it's called. Yeah. But I remember reading those as a kid in these reading circles to like all of the other kids, or some of the other kids in my class. Like, it would just be like a thing that would happen on like a rainy day, or we were just like inside in the classroom. I would, grab that book, pick like a scary story, pick like one of and those books are awesome, man. Like the illustrations and just the flow of those stories are nuts. I can't really believe that I was reading those as as a young third grader, because they're pretty scary. Honestly, scary stories to tell in the dark. But I remember. Yeah, that was something that's always stuck with me too. Those moments where I would be reading these scary stories to some of my friends in the class, which was really cool. Yeah, I love doing it. It was and it also connects to kind of this too, and like what I'm trying to do now is, you know, basically tell stories and stuff like that, and whatever else that comes to mind. So little connection. But yeah, those moments have always stuck with me too. Those reading moments. Yeah, I was obsessed with reading. It was I couldn't get enough of, just like nonfiction books or fiction books and like just fantasy stories and stuff like that. Something I did a lot was read. But yeah, elementary school. I've and those years just in general, like I was saying, yeah, I think a lot of my reflection is kind of just connects to around those school years, just because it's just such a big part of your life. It's really like it's like the biggest. But yeah, I actually visited. So if you guys want to, do something that would feel a little crazy, here's a suggestion: go and visit your elementary school, if it's like the same building. Because I did that later on. There were a few moments where I would just, if I drove home from, college in Eau Claire, if I drove home from EC Eau Claire, down to La Crosse, sometimes I would just like go and visit the elementary school, and like go to the playground or just like chill out and hang out there, maybe like take some pictures and stuff like that. So I did that occasionally. I would go like just walk around the playground and stuff like that. Maybe like shoot a basketball, shoot some hoops. So that was always really crazy, going back and checking it out. Because you get this really weird, you just get this feeling, like you've always been there, because you spent so much time there as a kid growing up. You just get that feeling back of like, damn, I've spent so many years here at this school. There was one time too where I actually went back to the school, Southern Bluffs, and I went inside. This happened one time and one time only. I told myself that before I got out of college, I wanted to go back to the school and actually, walk around inside and check it out, because I just haven't I haven't been inside the school for just, a really long time. And the thing is, I don't know if I'll ever go back, because, I don't know. There's no really need to, but I mean, who knows? But I wanted to make it a fact that I was gonna go in and actually check out the inside. Took my camera, of course. I take my camera basically everywhere, in case I see something cool, want to take a photo. So yeah, there was one moment. That was one time. I think I was either like a freshman or sophomore in college. So like 18, 19, 20, I don't know. But I went back to La Crosse, went to the school, got a visitor's pass, and walked around a little bit. And it's crazy. If you guys want to get your mind blown and just get kind of like really weirded out, go back to your elementary school and check it out, and just like get a visitor's pass and like walk around and see if it's like the same. Because it was generally this. It was the same building for mine. There was really no changes to pretty much anything. Just like the decorations on the walls and stuff like that. But everything else is pretty much the same. And the actual architecture of the school was pretty interesting. Like, it was a pretty new building, so it was the way the layout of the whole thing was kind of interesting, because it was all one floor. My whole school was one floor. When I think about it now, actually, That's not very common at all, I don't think. Usually schools now are, multiple floors, but my elementary school was all one floor, so it was super long and just really it took you a really long time to like walk from one end to the other. Um so and it was like a mid-sized school, so pretty decently big too. But so it was interesting, and it was interesting just to walk around it again years later. Like so much time has passed since I had been inside that school. The last time I was inside that school before that was fifth grade when I was 9 or 10. I come back basically 10 years later, and yeah, it's all the same, but you get a crazy feeling, dude. It's a lot of nostalgia, a ton of nostalgia. If you want to go for a nostalgia trip, go to your elementary school and check it out. But it was cool to do that, and I really wanted just to do that because I knew that I would never probably do that again, and I wanted to get that like kind of reflection, because those years I think they play a huge role in anybody's life. It's the years where you just grow up and you're just a kid and you're having fun in the world. But yeah, I've had good moments going back there and reflecting and just thinking about all of those times. But yeah, so that's pretty much it, guys. I think I'm gonna cut it here. I got into a lot in that. That was good. Spend that time kind of covering those years. Cool story. Yeah, cool. There's a lot of cool moments and stories that I remember from those years that I hope to always remember. And it's good to get it out there and kind of describe it in words like this. So that's it, guys. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope y'all are staying well. Yeah, hope you guys aren't getting are getting vaccinated and stuff like that. Taking care of yourselves. Get outside. I said it in the last one too. I'm gonna say it again. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to say. It's always hard ending these things. I'm still getting I'm trying to figure out how to end it right. But it's always weird ending it. At least trying to find the words to end it. But yeah, I hope you guys are getting outside as it warms up. I definitely cannot stress this enough. Get outside. It's gonna help. It's gonna help with anything. I took a 2 hour, like a 2.5 hour hike yesterday after I shot this other podcast. I got out right away after that, went for like a 2.5 hour hike. It was awesome. It was just wearing like a sweatshirt, walking through some forests, walking through some hills. It was good. So get outside, guys. Enjoy this weather, and hopefully things start turning a little green here soon. I'm kind of sick of just seeing these lifeless branches and trees out here. Hoping for some leaves soon, and warmer weather is ahead. So, all right, guys, stay well. Peace.